Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, I was talking to my buddy Aloy yesterday, and he said, "I don't know, man. You've been a little negative lately, talking about Dungeons and Dragons or 5e D&D. Maybe you should make a video about some of the stuff you like." And I looked at him and said, "I know. I love this shirt." Anyhow, so yeah, I know I've talked a little bit about 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and lately I've talked about some stuff that I don't particularly like or that I find problematic. But there's a lot of stuff to like about the game. There's a lot of things that I like about the game. So I figured I'd talk a little bit about that. And yeah, there's moments where I get frustrated because, looking at the game, it felt like it had a lot of potential and it didn't live up to the potential because of some of the decisions that were made. Okay, but we're not going to focus on that, Ivan. We're going to be positive. But I will say this, and I quipped to my friends yesterday, it's going to be a little difficult to make a positive video that is honest or an honest video that is positive, because occasionally there's moments where there's some things I just plain old like. There's some things that I like that have some problems at the other end. They produce some results which I don't find aesthetically as pleasing as others. I've talked about that a little bit from time to time. And there's some things which I like but are more problematic. And so I may mention that from time to time. But for the most part, I want this video to be about the things that I like about 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons so far. X number of months into it. So anyhow, let's go. And I may alienate some of my fans with some of these, or fans? Do I have fans? The people that watch this channel. Some of the old school people like me. I may alienate you with some of the things I like. Oh well. So let's go. I like cantrips. I like what they've done with the cantrip magic system. I like the fact that the wizards don't necessarily have to use a magic missile. They can use things like firebolt and these things that they can fire off every single round. They don't automatically hit. They're treated like actual attacks, etc. It makes the magic using characters feel much more magical. And I don't just mean offensively. There's tons of useful cantrips I think are really cool. And so yeah, they don't cost anything. You use them every single round. The cleric can cast Spare the Dying, which happens a lot in our game sometimes. Cool stuff. So I really enjoy that addition to the magic system and how they handle cantrips. I love the fact that you can power spells at a higher level. The fact that you can take a 2nd level spell and cast it with a 5th level slot and make it much more powerful at whatever it does. I think it's really, really cool. It gets rid of some of those repeating spells at the same spell, but just more powerful. And there's lots of spells I remember back in the day we'd look at and say, boy, I wish you could just do this a little bit better. And that spell didn't allow for that, and now they do. So I think that's a great idea. And I like the rituals idea, the idea that you can cast some spells as rituals, not burn the spell slot, but it takes a lot of time. That's very flavorful. I haven't used it enough, but I think it's a really cool addition to the magic system of the game and the flavor and how it works and all that kind of stuff. I like the proficiency mechanic for what it is. It's very simple. It eliminates a lot of the at-the-table mathematics. I like the advantage-disadvantage mechanic too. It does the same thing in a different manner. So it makes a lot of character creation and handling skills and all that sort of stuff pretty easy. There's very little at-the-table mathematics. I like the fact you can be proficient in tools or toolkits. The way that works, pretty cool. There's a lot of it's good for ease of use, and it accomplishes that very well. It does spit out some things on the other side, which can be less satisfying for me aesthetically, like the way combat works. But you may or may not like that. But overall, I think I even put in my video like approaching elegance. Pretty cool system. I like it. And really, it's been my experience so far, the math that has to get done at the table playing with the kids is mostly damage, because very often they're rolling a bunch of different dice and adding this modifier sometimes, depending on what kind of foe it is, or depending on what kind, if it's been hurt already, or all that kind of stuff. That's where the at the table math seems to happen, is in damage rolls in one way, shape, or form. I like the way the character sheets are laid out. I think they're fairly well done. I like the alternative one that's available, and where it has the skills lined up with the various ability scores that they're attached to, rather than the alphabetical version. I like that one a little bit better. And I actually, when I gave the kids their new iterations of their characters when they leveled up, I kind of help them out with that, and just email them the sheets. I found one of the kids actually dutifully translating all that information back to the original type of character sheet because he liked that one better, where the skills were in alphabetical order. And so I kind of laughed and threw my hands up. It's like, well, you can't please everybody. But I think they did a pretty good job with the character sheets overall. I like the conditions. Now, I just had a video talking about how I didn't like, the definition of things like grappling and versus restraint or whatever. I might have some quibbles with the definitions, but the idea that they have these common conditions that happen in the game, and they've given mechanical definitions to them and get some parameters about them, I think that's brilliant. That's really, really cool. So kudos to that. Let's see, what else? I like the difficulty class guidance they give you. I mean, it's very small, and it's 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever. It gives you a little bit of idea to like how to set difficulty classes of things. It's pretty cool. So not so bad in terms of how it works. I like the formula for the math of ability score modifiers. The idea that you make it simple for the neophyte, or even for me sometimes when I'm trying to remember what's the score, because I'm so used to the old ones. The idea that you take the ability score and I think you divide it by 2 and you subtract 5, round down, however you get to the final ability score modifier. That's pretty cool. I like them putting that formula in there. I wish they put a lot more formulas in the book to help with that. I like I don't know if you call it bounded accuracy or this is what it really is, but this idea that the range of armor classes is smaller. It's kept manageable. The range of like to hit modifiers or things like that are kept manageable. So there's not this big giant power spread from first level to 20th level in a lot of ways. And things don't change so much in some manners. There's not like, it keeps that nice and tidy. I like that. And so I think they did a fairly decent job with that. Segueing into that, and despite the fact that I made a video talking about how it's a little clunky, and I wish they had a chart next to it to kind of explain it to you a little bit better in terms of what are your final scores going to be. I like the math of how the armor works. To achieve the desired effect of this bounded accuracy and keeping things manageable, and what type of armor can use your full dexterity modifier, and what type of armor can use only 2 plus 2, and what type can't use any. I think they did a fairly good job with it. So it's very neat. It's very self-contained. Could use a few more lines of explanation or a little bit more coaching. But other than that, I think they did fairly well. I like how, despite the fact that I hate that they use the word proficiency for armor proficiency, because it has nothing to do with the proficiency mechanic, and I believe they absolutely should use signal words, or definitions like grappled, like proficiency. They should mean one thing and should only be used for that thing. Seriously. However, I like how it works. I like, how the idea that certain armors, always give you disadvantage to stealth, and if you're not proficient in armor, then you get disadvantages to your strength and dexterity, everything that involves that kind of stuff. It's really clean. It's taken away a lot of the complexity of older armor systems. So I think it's pretty cool. But it gives you some kind of choice. They're not just completely bland either. So that's cool. And how it affects magic, and either you're proficient or you're not, and then you can wear armor and cast or not cast, etc. I like what they've done with weapons and proficiencies by groups. I think that's really cool. Made it less complex in some of the older systems. Overall, weapons are very vanilla. They really are. There's not a hell of a lot of difference between martial and simple weapons, and between the various martial weapons, except for a couple spots where it's a finesse to this, or a two-handed that, or flexible that, or whatever the heck it happens to be. I like that, to be honest with you. And yes, I know that there's a difference between a D6 and a D8 and a D10, but it's like average 1 or 2 points of damage, kids. It's not that much. I like the fact that they're a little bit samey. That's just me. Some people hate that. I kind of like that. That we're not focusing on that level of minutia. It's very flavor based and less effect based, except for a couple things. I wish I had a little bit more, but it's very BX. I'm happy with the way that turned out for the most part. I like the healing system. I really do. I like the fact that you regain your hit points at night during a long rest. I like the fact that how short rests work. I love the hit dice system that they're using in there. The idea that you can roll as many hit dice as you'd like and heal up during the short rest. But then, of course, there's an expenditure cost, and you can only regain so many of them, so it's a little bit of a resource management. Not a lot. I like how death saves work. You may throw rocks at me, but these are two different things. So let's talk about the healing system first. To me, it supports the idea of what hit points actually are. A lot of your mojo and willingness to fight and all that kind of abstract type stuff. It supports that, but this idea that you can get your breath back, you can catch your get your second wind, all that sort of stuff. The way that they're representing the healing system for hit points, and also that and things like the death saves, they support kind of the basic vibe of this game, which is it's hard to die, and it's very clear in this game. It points very much in that direction. So as far as supporting that intention, whether they're saying it, baldly or not, and being right up front with it, it does a pretty good job at supporting that. I like the fact that there's 6 saves and for the 6 ability scores. I think that's really cool. It was really neat to see people making intelligence saving throws versus mind flayers during the last session. Yes, I threw mind flayers at them. It was great. So I like that quite a bit. I think that's really, really neat. So, not just limiting it to like 3 of the abilities. I always hated that. So I like the way the saves actually work. Eloy asked me, well, don't you like, the fact that they remove things like level drain and, poison, save or die and all this kind of stuff? And my answer is kinda. I have some issues with it, which I'll talk about in a different video. However, once again, in terms of supporting their purpose of making it harder to like die and all that kind of stuff, yeah, it does a pretty good job at enforcing or facilitating story mode D&D as opposed to dungeon crawl mode D&D, which is what's a couple of Eloy's terms, which are great. This is going to surprise you. I like the grapple mechanic. I think it's a good mechanic, to be quite honest. I still like the way the effect or the definition of grappled. That's all. I think it's a pretty good mechanic. I think it's good to use for other opposed roles. I actually like, this might really surprise you, I like the optional disarm mechanic that's in the section of the DMG for like optional combat things. I think it's very well done. The only thing, that I would change in that whole thing is just that I would remove that little part where they drop the item and just say they are disarmed. That particular mechanic doesn't even say they drop it it drops at their feet. It just says they drop the item. But just they are disarmed of it because then it becomes more abstract. But I like the way it works. Mechanically, it works really, really well. I like the optional, using kind of like step dice for proficiency rather than using the flat proficiency scores if you want to do that. A D6 is analogous to having a proficiency bonus of 3, etc. D12 is analogous to having a proficiency bonus of 6. The math works out great. I think it's flavorful. I understand why they didn't use it because, once again, less math at the table. But, I like the fact that it's in there. I don't think they actually included the D20 plus or minus D6, which is something I came up with. And I think Josh James, when he told me that was actually in the D&D Next rules, I don't think it actually is in the book. So I shouldn't even say I like that. But I do like it. Great minds think alike. Let's see. I like a bunch of the other optional rules or ideas in that little section of the DMG for combat and what have you. I forget what they call that particular chapter. Not all of them, but I think a lot of them are some pretty decent ideas. Not little teeny spot about combat and about something else using ability scores. Not all of them, but I think it's neat to throw those ideas there. Because, even though in this series I'm talking about running things raw, all that kind of stuff, if you watch my channel, I do house rules. Might not do it here because that's not what this purpose of this video series is about. But I like the fact that they give you some guidance. Here's some ideas. Let's see what else. I like difficult terrain. I think it's a decent way to handle movement through a whole bunch of different, in different conditions, without, resorting to like a whole bunch of different subsystems. And well, this, it makes you move quarter your distance, and this makes you move that, and this is, I like the fact that it's really simple, easy to use, that sort of thing. There must be some more stuff I like about 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, but those were some things I thought about yesterday and wrote down. And there's probably some more. So it's not all bad. There is a lot of decent stuff in this game. So there. I said something positive about it. Not all bad. And occasionally I have fun running it. Occasionally. Occasionally I have fun playing it. And Eloy and Jose and Eloy's daughter may be playing again soon. So maybe we'll have some more fun. And we'll talk about that. All right, take it easy, kids.